I came out here tonight to get away from everything. No city noise, no people, just the forest and the quiet. I set up my small tent between two tall trees and started a fire in front of it. The flames were small, but they gave off just enough light to push the darkness back a few meters. Inside the tent, I hung a lantern so I could still see if I needed something during the night. At first, everything felt peaceful. The fire cracked softly while the wind moved through the trees. Occasionally, a branch creaked somewhere in the forest, but that's normal when you're this far from civilization. But after a while, something changed. The forest became too quiet. The wind stopped. The insects stopped. Even the trees seemed completely still. I remember sitting there and realizing something felt wrong. Not dangerous, exactly, just wrong. Like the forest itself was listening. And that's when I heard the first sound behind me. A single step somewhere in the darkness between the trees. At first I thought it was an animal. A deer maybe, or something moving through the underbrush. That happens all the time in forests like this. But then I heard another step. Slower this time. Heavier, like someone trying very carefully not to make noise. I turned toward the trees and stared into the darkness. The firelight barely reached that far, so everything beyond the first few trunks was just shadows. For a moment I saw nothing. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. There was a shape standing between the trees. Tall. Too tall to be an animal. It wasn't moving. It was just standing there. Watching the campsite. I grabbed my flashlight and pointed it toward the spot, but the moment the beam touched the trees, the shape disappeared. No sound, no footsteps. Nothing running away. Just empty forest again. For a second I thought maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. But deep down I already knew something was wrong. Because a few seconds later I heard another step. Closer this time. That's when the fear really started. Because whatever I saw in the forest wasn't gone. It had just moved. I could feel it now. That strange sensation you get when someone is watching you. I sat by the fire pretending not to notice anything. I didn't want whoever was out there to know I had seen them. But the silence in the forest made it impossible to ignore. Then a twig snapped, right behind the tent. Not somewhere far in the woods, right there. Only a few meters away. My heart started pounding so loudly I was sure it could be heard outside. I slowly stood up and looked around the edge of the tent. For a second I saw movement between the trees again. The same tall silhouette. Closer now. The firelight touched the edge of it for just a moment. And that's when I realized something horrifying. The shape wasn't standing behind the trees anymore. It was slowly walking toward the campsite, and toward me. I didn't run. I don't know why. Maybe because I realized something terrible. Running into the forest at night would make things worse. So instead I went inside the tent and zipped it closed. The lantern was still hanging above me, lighting the thin fabric walls. Outside the fire was slowly dying. And then I heard him. Footsteps. Very slow footsteps moving around the tent. One step then another, then silence. Like he was circling me, studying the tent, listening, trying to understand exactly where I was inside. I held my breath and stayed completely still. The lantern light made shadows move across the tent walls every time the fire flickered outside. And suddenly one of those shadows stopped. A tall human shadow stretched across the fabric. He was standing right next to me, on the other side of the tent. My phone battery says 5%. I started recording because I didn't know what else to do. If someone finds this later, maybe they'll understand what happened here tonight. The footsteps outside stopped a minute ago. Completely stopped. That silence is worse than the walking, because now I know he isn't searching anymore. He already knows where I am. The fire outside has almost burned out. The only light left is the lantern hanging above me. And through the thin fabric of the tent I can see his shadow, right in front of the entrance. He hasn't moved for almost 30 seconds. Just standing there. Watching. Waiting. I can hear his breathing now, slow, calm. Like he's not in a hurry, and now his hand is reaching toward the zipper.